Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine, for a moment,
Yeah.
escaping into a digital world, right? A vintage mystery game, played online.
Yeah.
You're deep in the simulation, hunting for clues in this fictional 1930s Manhattan.
Hmm.
But what happens when that fictional case turns out to be, well, based on a real, decades-old cold case?
Mm.
And exploring it means stepping into, real-world danger.
That's exactly where this deep dive takes us. We've been sifting through a stack of sources, specifically excerpts from a book called Cold Case Tom Clancy .pdf.
Right.
And these pages, they kind of drop us into this fascinating intersection. A group of players immersed in this vintage mystery suddenly find their game mirroring an actual cold case.
Oh, yeah?
And pursuing it, even virtually, seems to trigger some pretty dangerous repercussions in their reality.
So our mission today is to navigate these layers. We're going to explore the virtual game, the real cold case it's based on,
Uh-huh.
the powerful figures who clearly want this buried, and, well, the individuals caught right in the middle.
And we're using only the details within these pages, right, to try and understand the different forces at play and what's truly going on.
Exactly, just the source material.
And right from the start, I think one of the most intriguing things is this blend. It's like old school detective tropes meet near future technology.
Yeah, tell me about it.
You've got the archetypal reclusive genius detective, the diligent legman, the hard-boiled private eye,
Classics.
all operating within a world of like virtual reality, wearable computers, wallet phones, and the skills of people like these net force explorers.
It really does feel like a classic noir mystery, just filtered through a COM25 lens.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's dive into the beginning of the game itself.
Right, so the heart of it is this mystery simulation. It was crafted by a guy named Ed Saunders,
Okay.
and it's set in 1930s Manhattan, apparently really rich with atmosphere.
And the characters the players inhabit are, like, straight out of classic detective fiction, aren't they?
Totally. There's Lucullus Martin, the brilliant but, reclusive investigator. Monty Newman, his reliable leg man. Spike Spanner, the tough-talking private eye.
Love that name.
And a couple of sets of society sleuths, Mick and Maura Slim, and another one called Milo Krantz.
Okay, full cast.
And what's clever is how quickly we see the real people behind these avatars. Like Monty Newman, the leg man, he's actually Matt Hunter, who's just a teenager.
Oh, wow, okay.
And Spike Spanner, the seemingly world-weary PI, turns out he's Father Tim Flannery, a priest.
A priest. That's brilliant. That contrast is great.
Isn't it?
And we mostly follow Matt's perspective as Monty Newman, right? He's doing the classic legwork,
Mm-hmm. The quintessential stuff.
hitting the library, poring over old newspaper files, the New York Chronicle, I think,
Yeah, that's the one.
looking specifically for info on the Van Alst family and what's initially just called the Van Alst murder.
And the source really nails the sim details, You see Monty taking a cab, carefully noting the fare.
Right, like something a
Uh,
modern kid wouldn't even think about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's this mention of Monty carrying a little artillery.
Which feels a bit, I don't know, out of place for a leg man, but maybe it hints at the game's edge or perhaps what the player expected.
Those small touches, they make the simulation feel really tangible. But this is where the story takes its pivot, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
The line between the Sims' 1930s Manhattan and the player's actual 2025 Washington, D.C., it starts to crumble.
That shift happens pretty fast.
Yeah.
Ed Saunders calls a virtual meeting of all the sim players.
Okay.
They initially appear in their character avatars, and you kind
Yeah.
of get a sense of this competitive spirit among these digital detectives.
A bit of rivalry.
Definitely.
Okay.
But Saunders quickly drops the pretense. He reveals the sim isn't pure fiction.
Here it comes.
He says it's based on a real case involving a rich dame who, in his pretty blunt words, got herself ground into chopped meat.
Wow. Okay. Not subtle.
Not subtle at all. And this real case, he explains, was serious enough to get a very important family and their lawyers on my back.
A very important family. That sounds ominous.
It does. And the actual name of the case, it's the Hadding case. The Hadding case. Got it.
And when players like Spike Spanner the priest, remember, and Milo Krantz accuse Saunders of hacking to get these real details.
Which seems like a reasonable question.
It does, but he denies it. He insists the info just, it got this family and their lawyers riled up, so he's forced to shut down the sim.
Just shuts down.
Yeah. Hopes that whoever the hacker is, the person who exposed the real case connection, will own up and promise to stop.
But stopping isn't really an option for Matt, is it? He wants answers.
Exactly.
Hmm.
He learns more from his friend Leif Anderson, who kind of dives into the background research.
Leif sounds like the tech guy.
Oh, definitely.
Yep.
And Leif frames the Hadding case as a lost chapter of the Calavant curse.
The Calavant curse. Okay, now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, something that happened way before we were born, like over 40 years ago.
And this is where we meet the Calavants. The sources portray them as this powerful political dynasty, right?
Hugely powerful. Mentioned alongside families like the Tafts and Kennedys. They've had senators, congressmen.
Also tragedy.
Yeah, a lot of it. Sons Steve, Will, and Martin dying. The family patriarch, Senator Walter Calavant, is left debilitated by a stroke and some failed experimental treatment.
Oof.
And his son, Walter G. Calavant, known less reverently as Calavant Light,
Huh? Okay.
served just one term as senator and apparently became, well, fodder for late-night comics.
Not exactly carrying on the dynasty strongly then.
Doesn't sound like it.
So how does this Hadding case connect back to them?
Well, it turns out Priscilla Hadding, they called her Silly, apparently.
Right.
She was last seen with Walter G. Calavant, Calavant Light, at this, crazy end-of-school party way back in the early 80s.
Okay, so decades ago.
Yeah, decades. When they were about Matt's age, actually.
Wow.
And the official story was, well, it was murky. Witnesses couldn't agree on things.
Which sounds like prime ground for conspiracy theories.
Exactly. Especially involving a family like the Calavants, cover-up written all over it, potentially.
Makes sense.
And Leif also points out that the cease and desist letters Saunders got, they might not have come just from the Calavants.
Oh, another angle.
He suggests the Hadding family could also be involved. Maybe Priscilla's mother, Felicia Hadding.
Why would she want it buried?
Well, maybe she just doesn't want anyone nosing around her daughter's death. Perhaps finding the whole murder investigation itself somewhat vulgar,
Ah, the sensibilities of the wealthy. So two powerful families possibly wanting this kept quiet.
Exactly. Each with their own potential motives.
And as Leif tells Matt, with the sim gone and the real case exposed.
You've got a whole new mystery now, the case of the hidden hacker.
But that new mystery, it escalates really fast. From digital to deadly.
It really does. Matt is clearly, rattled by the threats and what this all could mean.
That's understandable.
So he decides to visit Ed Saunders in person, takes his father along, conveniently during an ice storm.
An ice storm. Okay. And what do they find?
They find Saunders dead near his home. And while on the surface it looks like maybe he slipped on the ice, but the police are there, including David Gray's father, who happens to be a homicide detective.
Uh-huh. That signals something's up.
Right. It immediately suggests foul play is on the table. Matt even notices the police using separation tactics, which just heightens the suspicion.
So standard procedure, but in this context, very suspicious.
Matt tells Leif about it, and Leif wonders if maybe one of the playmates resented this deadline of his that much.
Implying one of the sim players might be the killer.
That's the implication, though Matt hasn't found any obvious leads in Saunders' contacts yet.
But crucially, Matt somehow gets a list, right? Of the real names and addresses of the sim participants.
Yes, the source implies this list came from Saunders' files, possibly accessed by the hacker who exposed the real case in the first place.
That list sounds incredibly dangerous.
Oh, it is. And he shares it, gives it to Father Flannery, and later to two other players, Carrie Jones and Suze Kellerman.
Which then leads Matt and Father Flannery to start visiting these players they've identified.
Exactly. And this is where the real-world danger truly manifests.
Okay, who's first?
First up is Harry Knox. He played Milo Krantz in The Sim.
Right.
They miss him at a diner, but Matt spots his truck leaving. It's got distinctive red stripes.
Okay, memorable truck.
Very.
Yeah.
Because later, they see that same truck submerged in the water, crashed off the Key Bridge. Knox is dead.
Hey.
Captain Winters from NetForce shows up.
NetForce is involved now.
Yeah, seems like they're keeping tabs. Winters mentions another trucker heard Knox took a rush job, which might explain why he was speeding or driving erratically.
Trying to make it seem less suspicious?
Maybe. Winters tries to comfort Matt, tells him, never blame yourself for what other people do. But he also notes a damaged laptop was found in Knox's truck. Says Knox seemed to have technical skills, so he could have been the hacker. But there's no hard proof. Later, Matt and his friend David speculate maybe Knox's truck was hit by an EMP.
An EMP, like an electromagnetic pulse, to disable the truck.
That's the theory. Not a huge one, maybe something targeted like a hobbyist device designed to mess with the vehicle controls.
Wow. That fixed the tech setting. and connects back to the laptop, maybe.
Possibly. It
Huh.
shows how they're thinking that these aren't simple accidents.
Okay, so Knox is dead. Who do they visit next?
They go see Carrie Jones and Suze Kellerman, the college students who played the society sleuths, Mick and Morris Slim.
How does that go?
Not great. Jones comes across as really arrogant, kind of dismissive of the danger, says he trusts Suze to watch his back.
A bit naive, maybe.
Seems like it. Matt leaves them the list of real identities anyway, just in case.
And Jones's reaction.
He actually accuses Matt or Father Flannery of being the killer.
What? Seriously?
Yeah. Suze, though, she's clearly terrified, just wants it all to stop. You feel for her.
Understandable.
No.
Okay, who else is on the list?
Their most telling encounter is with Oswald Durbin, the reclusive player behind the genius detective Lucullus Martin.
Ah, the mastermind character. What's he like in reality?
He's a mystery book collector, lives in this dilapidated old house in Virginia, surrounded by a world-class cacti collection, oddly enough.
Cacti. Yeah.
He's physically frail, but his voice is deep, perfect diction. He really embodies the reclusive genius persona from the game.
And the books.
Obsessed, especially with Lucullus Martin novels, owns all 47, including super rare editions he keeps locked up.
Sounds like quite the character. Is he helpful?
He seems paranoid, definitely, but also incredibly insightful. He picks up on Matt's flair for extracting information. He even wonders aloud if his own suggestions about Mr. Saunders' death during that virtual meeting were genuine suspicion or just, part of playing the game. Shows how blurred the lines are.
That's a really interesting point. Does he think they should team up?
He agrees with Matt and Father Flannery on the need for an alliance, but he's realistic. Thinks the players' competitive natures make it unlikely.
Oh, yeah.
And he makes this really poignant observation that this real mystery is much less enjoyable than the simulation.
I bet. Hits differently when it's real lives. So what happens to Durbin? Does he stay safe?
No. Sadly not. Matt later sees news footage. Durbin's house is burning down.
Oh, come on. Another one?
Yeah. Captain Winters confirms Durbin ran back inside, presumably trying to save his priceless books.
Oh, the book.
And the ceiling collapsed on him. He's critically injured, not expected to make it.
And let me guess, ruled an accident.
You got it. Winters says he pushed the local investigator, but the verdict was fire by accidental causes. Final.
This is getting bad. It feels like someone is just picking them off.
It certainly looks that way. A definite pattern emerging.
While all this real-world tragedy is happening, what are the Net Force explorers doing? Leif and the others.
Right. They're bringing their unique digital skills to the table. Leif, especially.
The tech whiz.
Definitely. He somehow gets his hands on a tracking program to trace the sim participants' proxies, gives them a starting point, at least.
Okay, tracking digital footprints.
And he plans this daring dive into the dead files of the DMV, basically archived, probably offline government records.
Why, yeah. What's he looking for?
He wants to trace Walter G. Callivant's classic 1965 Corvette. Notes that the lack of a VIN system back then makes it harder.
The car Priscilla Hadding was last seen near.
Exactly. He mentions using a universal handshaking program to sort of blend into data traffic in these dead storage archives.
Sounds like hacking government files.
It sounds like bypassing standard protocols for sure. Very Net Force style, accessing information that's not supposed to be easily accessible.
Okay, so Leif is digging into the past. What about Megan?
Megan gets involved too. She's worried about Matt, obviously. Leif enlists her to interact with Nikki Callivant.
Walter G's granddaughter.
Right. At some formal event, Nikki is their age, represents the closest connection to the powerful family they have.
Putting her in the lion's den almost.
Kind of. Megan gives this glimpse into the superficiality of that whole social scene, even comments on the awful taste in music. She meets both Walter G. and the elder Senator Callivant.
Any breakthroughs?
There's a key moment in the ladies' room. Megan helps Nikki with her dress or something.
Okay.
And this brief private interaction lets Megan mention Priscilla Hadding's death and the mystery sim. And it visibly rattles Nikki.
Ah, so the younger generation might not be fully on board with the family secrets.
That's the hint, yeah, that the facade might be cracking a bit there.
Okay, so they're making progress on different fronts, but the danger is still escalating, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about the autobus attack.
Yeah, this is maybe the most intense scene showing the real-world danger they're in. Matt, David, who's on crutches with an injured leg, remember, and Megan are on a public bus, an autobus.
Right.
They spot this suspicious black car, tinted windows, antenna grid, looks ominous.
Uh-oh.
And suddenly the bus computer just goes nuts.
What do you mean nuts?
It starts accelerating erratically, playing bumper cars with traffic.
Yeah.
It's clearly being controlled remotely.
Remotely controlled? That's terrifying.
Totally. David's laptop, which is crucial for their investigation, gets targeted, almost knocked out of his hands. Matt gets injured, hits a pole, bleeding from his forehead.
Oh, man.
Megan tries to hit the emergency cutoff switch, but it's physically blocked by some kind of clear barrier.
Sabotaged.
Looks like it. She uses David's cane to break the barrier, kicks the button, but the bus still doesn't stop.
It overrides the cutoff.
Yeah, it's described as fighting the order. It indicates really powerful external interference messing with even basic safety systems. You hear engine noises, smell burning circuits. The tech is failing under the strain.
Can they get out?
They realize it's about to crash. Megan suggests using passenger poles to ram the computer housing, maybe disrupt it. But mostly, they manage to scramble out a window just before the bus slams into a tree in a park.
Wow. Close call. Does anyone figure out what happened?
Captain Winters arrives again. Alerted somehow, maybe by passenger names being flagged, his technical crew finds damaged, burned out hardware.
So physical evidence.
Yes, but they confirm the cutoff was activated, but call the failure anomalous. They can't identify the exact nature of the failure.
Conveniently vague.
Exactly. Megan insists the cutoff didn't work right. David brings up the EMP theory again, maybe targeting the bus controls this time.
Consistent theory, at least.
But Matt just concludes, probably rightly, that without hard evidence, this will likely be dismissed as just another accident.
It's a pattern now, isn't it? Suspicious deaths, near-fatal incidents, all framed as accidents in the official narrative.
Strongly suggests a powerful force is actively interfering and covering their tracks, yeah.
Which brings us to Deep Throat and the direct confrontation with the Calavent family itself.
Right. So Leif and another explorer, Andy Moore, they managed to trace the anonymous Deep Throat.
The one sending cryptic messages.
Yeah, the Vert mails with clues and warnings about the Hadding case and Walter G's car, they trace him to a guy named Clyde Finch.
Okay. Who's Clyde Finch?
He's a former New Jersey resident who moved down to Haddington, Delaware, and became a cop. Andy notes Finch seems to have cleaned up his act, whatever that means.
A cop involved. Interesting. So Matt goes to meet him.
Matt decides to meet him alone, which, might not have been the best idea.
Why? What happens?
It goes bad quickly. Finch gets aggressive, tries to handcuff Matt, even pulls a gun on him, calls him a troublemaker.
Whoa. The cop pulls a gun on a teenager.
Yeah. But then Finch suddenly suffers a heart attack right there.
Wait.
Mid-confrontation. And Matt, despite being partially cuffed and having just been threatened, he manages to get the cuffs off using Finch's key and gives him his pills. Saves his life.
Wow. Matt saves the guy who just pulled a gun on him. That's something.
It's a remarkable moment, yeah. Shows Matt's character.
And right after this, Nikki Calavant shows up.
Yeah, she picks Matt up. And she seems to be kind of breaking ranks with her family's secrets.
How so?
She says something like, Grandpa Clyde, his loyalty is to the family, not to me. Thinking that Finch has been part of the Calavent cover-up machine for a long time.
Ah, Grandpa Clyde. So Finch is practically family.
Seems that way. And Nikki gives Matt her net address. A sign of trust, maybe. Wanting to communicate outside the family's control.
Okay, where does she take him?
Straight to the Calavant mansion, setting the stage for the big confrontation.
Finally facing the patriarch.
Exactly. They encounter the elderly Senator Walter Calavant in his wheelchair. And despite being frail, he is verbally vicious.
What does he say?
Accuses Matt of being a miserable thief, rats in the wall, a ghoul digging up the dead past. Asks if Matt was sent for pest control.
Pest control. Chillin'.
He clearly views Matt as just this nuisance digging into family business he wants buried. He even threatens Matt, mentioning Net Force might get involved if something happens to Matt, which is seriously menacing coming from him.
Wow. Using Net Force as a threat. Who else is there?
They're joined by Daniel Calavant, Nikki's father, Walter G's brother.
Okay.
And Nikki directly confronts them, asks about Priscilla Hadding.
Puts them on the spot.
Totally. Senator Calavant insists it was an accident, but then he admits that he, Clyde Finch, and Daniel protected Walter G.
He admits it. A cover-up.
Admits protecting him, yeah. Acknowledges their role.
What happens then?
Well, in the middle of all this, Walter G. Calavant himself calls the police on himself and drives away.
Calls the cops on himself. Why?
It's unclear at first. Senator Calavant, always thinking about control, immediately tries to spin a story that Matt attacked Nikki.
Trying to frame Matt.
Looks like it. Daniel, Nikki's father, is caught in the middle, torn between his dad and his daughter.
But Nikki acts.
Nikki makes her choice. She jams the senator's communications, literally rips the transceiver from his wheelchair, and lets the police into the house.
Takes control. Good for her.
Yeah.
What about Walter G?
He leads the police on this strangely slow chase towards Cowper's Bluff Nature Preserve.
Cowper's Bluff. Didn't Leif mention that place?
Yeah, Leif had noted a Calvin-supported birdland preserve was located there, funded by a foundation in Haddington, Delaware. Connects the family's influence and history right to that spot.
Okay, so it's significant. What does Walter G do there?
He drives his car off the bluff into the Chesapeake Bay.
Drives off the bluff. Suicide.
That's how it's ruled. But Matt whispers something to Nikki. That's where they must have hidden his real car.
His real car. Meaning the one from the 80s. The one involved with Priscilla Hadding.
That's the implication, that this wasn't just suicide, but a final act to dispose of the crucial piece of evidence. And Nikki confirms it, that specific car had been kept off limits, hidden away for years.
Wow. So he takes the secret and the evidence with him.
Seems like it. In the immediate aftermath, Walter G's death is officially ruled a suicide, attributed to stress over a potential candidacy he was considering.
Convenient.
Very. Captain Winters expresses sympathy to Daniel Calivan, showing that complex interplay between official duties and, personal connections in these circles.
So what does Matt think? Does he feel like justice was served?
Not really. He reflects that the full truth behind Walter G. Calivan's suicide might never come out officially.
And justice for Saunders, Knox, Durbin.
Also seems uncertain, largely because the men involved, the Calivans, Finch perhaps, are so powerful, and Winters lacks the solid evidence he needs for official action.
It always comes back to hard proof, doesn't it?
Even with overwhelming suspicion.
And the identity of the hacker. The one who started all this by revealing the Hadding case connection.
Still officially unknown. Could it have been Knox, given the laptop and tech skills?
Plausible.
Was it Finch, Deep Throat? He clearly knew things and was involved.
Also plausible.
Or someone else entirely. The fact that Deep Throat sent another vert mail after Knox was already dead really complicates the Knox theory.
Right. If Knox was the hacker, who sent the message after he died? Unless
someone else had access or took over, or Finch was Deep Throat all along, it's left hanging.
So Matt and Winters talk about this frustration, needing proof.
Yeah. Winters basically acknowledges the difficulty, but assures Matt he's keeping a net search going, implying he's not dropping it, just can't act officially yet. Still investigate it unofficially.
Okay, so Matt gathers the Net Force explorers again. Megan, David, Andy Moore.
Yeah, they regroup to discuss what they actually know for sure. David confirms the tech evidence on Knox's computer does point to hobbyist or aftermarket tech use.
Consistent with the targeted EMP theory for the truck or bus.
Exactly. And they found passwords on Knox's machine, suggesting he could have accessed Saunders' files. So, opportunity and means, maybe?
But still no definitive proof he was the hacker or the killer.
Nope. They also review the grim details Leif dug up about the Hadding case itself.
What were those again?
The specifics about it being a fall or push from a moving car, and that detail about Priscilla Hadding's leg getting hung up, being dragged.
Ugh, that sounds violent. Suggests force, not just an accident.
Absolutely. A crucial detail pointing towards foul play back then.
And then there's that final Deep Throat vert mail that came after Knox died. What was weird about that?
It asks these really specific questions, but Matt notes the answers could easily be found just by looking in books.
So it's like the sender is playing games.
Yeah.
Or testing them.
Yeah, it feels like that. Almost taunting. Leaves the hacker's true motives and identity still slightly obscured, even at the end.
And Leif? Is he giving up?
Not a chance. Leif, ever the tech renegade, basically implies he's not stopping. He's going to keep using those unauthorized methods, digging into the dead files of the DMV, using his hidden programs and tools.
To do what?
To investigate further, specifically targeting the details around Walter G's car, its history, trying to find that missing link.
Still chasing the truth, even off the books.
And then Andy Moore makes this slightly dark joke.
Oh, yeah.
About Walter G. Calivan using the best government technology for his dirty tricks.
Oof. Maybe a bit too soon, but...
Yeah, the others find it in bad taste given everything that just happened, but it highlights that chilling theme, doesn't it?
That in this world, powerful people might have access to advanced tech and use it not just for, official purposes, but to cover up secrets, manipulate events, maybe even kill people.
It certainly does. I mean, we started in what seemed like a harmless vintage game, right?
Yeah, just a simulation.
But that deep dive led us straight into uncovering this decades-old cold case tied to a hugely powerful political dynasty.
Which in turn seemed to trigger this series of real-world accidents and deaths.
Exactly. All while the official story stays neat and tidy, contained.
It's a journey that really, really blurs the lines between the digital and the physical world, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Digital tools created the game, enabled the initial investigation.
But also potentially facilitated the attacks and the cover-ups,
Mm-hmm.
like the EMP theory or remotely controlling the bus.
Right. It shows how deeply information, secrets, and power dynamics operate in this setting, and how even in a tech-advanced future like 2025, old money and political influence can still, well, bury the truth pretty effectively.
And it really contrasts the ways you can seek justice.
Definitely. You've got the official route, Captain Winters, bound by the need for hard evidence, which is almost impossible to get when powerful forces are actively hiding it,
Right.
versus the unofficial, agile, tech-savvy approach of the NetForce explorers. They're willing to bend, maybe break the rules to find answers.
What strikes me most is that recurring pattern. These suspicious events, Saunders' fall, Knox's crash, Durbin's fire, the bus attack, they're all consistently officially ruled as accidents.
Every single time, despite happening to people connected to this dangerous secret with powerful people in the background.
It really leaves you questioning how many so-called coincidences are actually deliberate actions, doesn't it?
It really does. So what does this all mean? I think it leaves you thinking about how many other mysteries might be hidden, just like this one. In plain sight, maybe. Online or off.
Things written off as just bad luck or a tragic accident.
Exactly. But where if you dig just a little deeper, like Matt and his friends did, you might find secrets that powerful people are absolutely determined to keep buried.
It makes you wonder if some mysteries are simply designed never to be solved, just paved over by the official story.